Hey there, everyone. It's GG Sober Son. November the 3rd. I have charity, another word for love. That right kind of love, which is not selfish passion, but an unselfish, outgoing desire to help other people, to do what is best for the other person, to put what is best for him or her above my own desires, to put God first, the other person second, and myself last. Charity is gentle, kind, understanding, long-suffering, and full of desire to serve. AA has given me this. What I do for myself is lost. What I do for others may be written somewhere in eternity. Have I charity? That is a wonderful topic, and I really, the first time I really experienced this, when it was not helping others wasn't a codependent, grandiose need, was in 1999, the year 1999. My wife and kids, my wife at the time, and our kids went to England for the summer, and I was home alone in this big 4-bedroom, 2-story house. It was base housing on Andrews Air Force Base, and there was a like a clubhouse type thing on base, oddly enough. And there was a guy that used to show up, and sometimes he would show up drunk and tell everybody else, don't drink, don't even do it, keep coming back, that kind of thing. He was just one of those guys who knew he had a problem, but it just couldn't get it, and one day he showed up with a suitcase in his hand, and like an old-fashioned wood, like almost like wooden looking suitcase, like George Bailey from from It's a Wonderful Life. Not quite that big, but anyway, and he was asking somebody for a ride, and the place where he was asking a ride for was like half an hour drive away, and to get back home is like 5 minutes for me to get back home, probably 10 minutes to walk, but the guy who chaired the meeting was, you could tell he was kind of weary of the guy. Not wary, but weary, because the guy kept coming, he kept coming back and he couldn't stay sober. But anyway, I thought the guy was friendly enough anyway, and I was like, I'll give you a ride home. So we get to talking, he gives me a little bit of his background, and half an hour drive, I get to know a little bit about him, and we pull up in front of his house, and he's just like, trying to take really deep breaths, and just steel himself before he walked into his house, because his wife and kids knew he was coming home, and he didn't leave on good terms, kind of thing, after, when he went to rehab. And I was like, look, man, if you think it's going to be really terribly bad, I said, I've got a spare bedroom. You're welcome to stay in it until you get something figured out, and I mean, I didn't plan that out. It just seemed like the natural flow of things, really. And I just went with it, it's kind of like the thought occurred to me that I got this big old house. I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I was lonely, but it was just kind of like, what am I going to do with myself, So anyway, dude came and he was like, "You do that?" I was like, "Sure, man. Just until you figure shit out, you know." And anyway, the next couple of days, and I can't remember, you know, I don't think it was more than 2 or 3 nights, thinking back. But however long it was probably one of the most spiritual experiences I ever had. You know, and I was smoking and stuff like that again. And this was after a period of time where I was trying to be Mr. Super Christian, you know, and do everything right and not screw up, and I'd been through a few hard knocks, but you know, since then, and so that was, and I would really wish I still had his number, man. I'd really like to look him up, and anyway, that was my act of charity, and I knew it was so spiritual. I felt like I was in a flow. Jumpy fish. I even wrote a poem at one point, you know, about the spiritual life and all this stuff, you know. And he taught me a little bit about golf because he enjoyed watching golf, and he was telling me about how and why Tiger Woods was so much better than all the other golfers and all this stuff, you know. And I never got into golf, but you know, so it was a give and take, you know, for a bit, and I got a bunch out of it, and I know that the Spirit of God letting God's Spirit flow through me in the act of charity is like a supernatural thing, man. You just know you're in the flow. You just know you're in the flow of God's will. And oh my gosh, I wouldn't keep that from anybody in the world. Right? Because there's no ego involved. It's just allowing God to nudge you in the direction of, hey, you've got that exact thing that guy needs. So, meditation for the day. Ask what you will. This is a quote. Ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. End quote. God has unlimited power. There is no limit to what his power can do in human hearts. But we must will to have God's power, and we must ask God for it. God's power is blocked off from us by our indifference to it. We can go along our own selfish way without calling on God's help, and we get no power. But when we trust in God, we can will to have the power we need. When we sincerely ask God for it, we get it abundantly. And as long as we're open to it, you know, we don't necessarily have to will to have God's power, but I think it's more of a being open to receive God's power and a letting go of what power I think I have, because I'm just as powerless over people, places, and things, and sometimes my own impulses. So I have to surrender and ask. Surrender and ask. Otherwise, why would I ask? You know? Prayer for the day. I pray that I may will to have God's power. I pray that I may keep praying for the strength I need. And that takes a certain amount of surrender as well. All right, y'all. Love you. Keep coming back. Chin up. Aim up. Rise up.